Price of Looking Back, Orpheus and Eurydice. In ancient Greece, where gods walked among mortals and music could charm the very stones, lived Orpheus, whose lyre could tame wild beasts and make trees dance. But for all his gifts, he was about to learn the hardest lesson. Sometimes love's greatest test is knowing when not to look back. Orpheus was more than just a musician, son of Apollo and the muse Calliope. His songs could make the mountains weep and rivers change their course. Yet when he met Eurydice, a wood nymph of uncommon grace, for the first time in his life, he found himself speechless. Here was a beauty that surpassed even his divine music. Their wedding was a celebration that brought together gods and mortals. The forest bloomed out of season, and even the stones seemed to hum with joy. But the fates, those weavers of destiny, had spun a dark thread into their tapestry of happiness. On that very wedding day, as Eurydice danced barefoot through a meadow, she stepped on a viper hidden in the grass. The snake's venomous bite sent her tumbling into the underworld, leaving Orpheus clutching a lifeless body still wrapped in her bridal veil. His grief shook the world. His laments were so heart-wrenching that the nymphs and gods themselves wept, but tears wouldn't bring back his love. So Orpheus did what no mortal had ever dared. He decided to journey to the underworld to reclaim his bride. Armed only with his lyre, he descended into the earth. At the gates of Hades, the three-headed dog Cerberus bared its fangs, but Orpheus played a lullaby that sent all three heads to sleep. His music charmed the ferryman Charon into giving him free passage across the river Styx. In the throne room of Hades himself, Orpheus played a melody so moving that Persephone, queen of the underworld, was brought to tears. Even Hades, lord of the dead, felt his iron heart soften. Orpheus sang of his love, of its cruel cutting short, of the emptiness of a world without Eurydice. Finally, Hades spoke. "Mortal, your music has done what none have done before. It has touched death itself. You may have your Eurydice back. She will follow you to the world above. But there is one condition. You must not look back until both of you have reached the surface. If you do, she will be lost to you forever." Orpheus agreed immediately. What could be simpler than not looking back? The journey began. Up the winding path they went. Through caverns dark as doubt, Orpheus led, and behind him, he could hear her footsteps, couldn't he? Or was that just an echo? The silence was maddening. Was she still there? Had Hades tricked him? The path grew steeper. Still, he didn't look back. He could feel the air growing fresher. They were almost there. Just a few more steps. Then came a stumble behind him, a soft gasp. In that split second, love overwhelmed reason. Forgetting everything, he turned. There she was, her arms reaching for him, her face a mixture of love and infinite sadness. Their eyes met for one precious moment. Then she was gone, pulled back into the depths like smoke in the wind. Her final word, his name, Orpheus. He tried to follow her again, but this time Charon refused to ferry him. For 7 days he sat by the banks of the Styx, playing songs of such sorrow that even the stones wept. But Eurydice was gone forever. Years later, when Orpheus finally died, torn apart by frenzied Maenads for refusing to sing about any god but Apollo, his soul descended once more to the underworld. There at last he was reunited with his Eurydice. Some say they can still be seen in the Elysian fields, walking together, and this time neither one looks back. The ancient Greeks saw in this tale a profound truth about human nature, that we often destroy what we love most by our inability to trust, by our need to verify, to look back, to make sure. Sometimes love requires us to walk forward in faith, even when every instinct screams at us to turn around. But perhaps the deeper message is about acceptance. Orpheus could charm nature itself, could even persuade death to relent, but in the end he couldn't accept the simple truth that some things, once lost, cannot be reclaimed, at least not in the way we wish. Every generation has found its own meaning in this tale. For some, it's a story about trust. For others, about the limits of divine mercy. For artists, it speaks to the power of love and music, to transcend death itself, almost, but not quite. And for everyone who has ever lost someone, it's a warning about the price of looking back when we should be looking forward. The gods gave Orpheus one chance to rewrite fate, but in that crucial moment, he proved himself all too human. And perhaps that's why this story has endured. Because in his weakness, in his inability to simply trust and walk forward, we see ourselves.